Hello and welcome to the B Roll, your backstage pass to the PNMC. I am your host, Angela Ray. We are looking forward to an amazing time in Portland, Oregon, August 17th through the 20th. If you have not made plans to attend, go ahead and grab your airplane ticket, make your hotel reservations, put it on your calendar, and make plans to have your face in the place. And so, on today's episode, I am going to talk with a Hollywood legend. She is an actress, she's a director, she is a playwright, an educator, and an activist. She won a Golden Globe Award for her performance on the show I'll Fly Away. Many of you may remember her as Lily Harper. In addition, she was the first Black actress to play Juliet on Broadway in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. She has written, she has directed, she has produced, and she has brought to life some of our favorite characters. And today I'm excited to have her here so we can have a little conversation. So please welcome the incomparable Regina Taylor. Regina, how are you today?
Hello, Miss Angela. How you doing?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about where you've been, the trail that you've blazed, and then also what you have coming up. And of course, we're excited to have you as a part of the PNMC Fest coming up. And you're going to be doing a celebrity reading for your play, The Black Album Mixtape. Talk to us a little bit about the Black Album Mixtape.
The Black Album mixtape, I started writing it in 2020. Um, come COVID, come George Floyd, I had some time to sit and steep. So I started writing this series of short pieces about the issues of the day, what was on my mind, and not knowing if I was going to get through it or not, what I needed to speak on. It is a piece that encompasses COVID, encompasses police violence, that encompasses gun laws, gender identity, um, that there's a character in it. She's 110 years old. The piece is called Deja Vu. And this woman remembers the hard earned passage of being able to vote. And here we are again, deja vu. She's looking out at the world right now, and it looks all too familiar. And I can identify with that as well. There are certain things that are happening in this country that I went, oh, I never thought in my lifetime I'd see this again, smell this again. It's very disconcerting. I needed to write about that. I needed to write and send that out to share, to let people know that they're not alone on this journey. And also to have um, a way of starting discussions, necessary discussions about these times.
And it is a powerful piece. It is definitely the kind of piece that sparks conversation. I mean, you said you wanted to put it out there because of just watching what we all witnessed starting in March of 2020. And
Yes, what we witnessed and what we are going through right now today.
yeah, you're right, because it is. You're right. It has not stopped. As a matter of
It
fact, it seems
continues.
like it's getting. We didn't. I personally didn't think it could get any worse, but
Mm.
every day there is something, an article online, a video, or
Yes.
something along those lines, where it's like, how far do we have to go before we can begin to rein this back in and get back to some, I won't say normalcy, because there was, even before that, there was still things that needed to happen, but maybe just starting with civility.
Mm.
I feel like that's gone.
Uh, we say going back to normal. I don't know what is normal. I don't know that we'll ever capture what that was, or do we want that? I'm of a certain age, time, place, going through the segregated South, integrating schools. That was normal. Segregation when I was born. And then we marched, we prayed, we fought, we negotiated, and uh, felt this arc of the moral universe uh, bending towards. I was talking to a young person. I was teaching at a high school, and probably about 16, 17 years old, and she was talking about, oh, Obama, way back with Obama,
Wow.
and,
Really?
and the post-racial scene was what people were talking about back then. She remembers those conversations, the old days. And then, you know, you go, yes, I remember um, the inauguration. And I was going, oh, my mother could see this. And then 8 years later, I went, oh, I can't believe I'm seeing this. And here we are today. As a writer, I feel like I need to sift through, figure out where I stand, uh, if I can continue to stand, where I stand, and then share that and see where other people, uh, what they're feeling. And and with Black Album Mixtape, I've been able to have that discourse um, that gives me some comfort, especially about the next generation who will have to. Each generation has to fight for it. Yes.
Yes. Or risk losing even more. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
So that is theater. That is it, you writing and you directing, uh, but you're also an actress on stage, as well as in film, as well as in television. Talk about some of your memorable moments. And what I mean by memorable moments, like whether it was on a show, whether it was in a play, those things that either made you stop and say, wow, this was impactful, or wow, this stretched me as a performer. What are some of your memorable moments?
Well, entering into it, because I've always been a writer. I started writing when I was about 4 years old, writing children's books. So I went into college with the expectation of being a journalist. Uh, I took an acting class to fill out an extra credit. My counselor said most people get an easy A going through that class. So Acting 101, I took that class and loved it. I loved acting in the same way uh, that I loved reading, loved writing, is that you get to step inside other people's shoes, to walk around in their skin, see through their eyes, and then come back from that journey, hopefully with an expanded sense of self, how we might be different in this world, uh, individuals, but how at the core we're the same, similar dreams, hopes, desires, strengths and faults. Uh, I love that about acting, to go beyond what I felt was myself, um, my world, to time travel, to become, and the possibilities of becoming. I love that. Took my first acting class, and while I was wandering around in the theater school, had an opportunity to get an audition uh, for um, a made-for-TV movie. Uh, it was Crisis at Central High, starring Joanne Woodward, and I got to play one of the students. Um, of the Little Rock Nine, uh, the
Mm,
nine students who integrated
yes.
the Arkansas school system. Uh, got to play a real life character. Took my first uh, ride on an airplane to go to Arkansas from Dallas, Texas, that summer,
Wow.
to shoot this film at the actual school where you have militia ushering in these students for their safety, integrating the school. That was my first professional job for film, for TV. And I went, wow. Um, and I think what also impressed me is how something about education, about social justice, and the arts can go hand in hand. And I've carried that with me since. That was an amazing experience. I've had a lot of amazing experiences each and every time, um, whether that was playing Juliet on Broadway, whether that was um, working with Mr. Sidney Portier in a Western called A Good Day to Die. Because I remember being a child, when you talk about the power of the arts, power of images, what we do, telling our stories. Um, I remember being a child, and back then it was if you saw a black person on the black and white TV, if you saw a black person, uh, you would call down the street in your neighborhood and say, "Oh, it's Sidney Poitier. Oh, it's Cicely Tyson, Diane Carroll. Oh," and people would gather around the TV set and go, "Oh, that's me." Uh, in this time when I was growing up, when these images of self were so reaffirming, affirming uh, that uh, before, because Sidney Poitier, Cicely Tyson, these people were groundbreakers uh, because we didn't see uh, our authentic selves represented in the media. That was very rare and far between. Um, yeah, so to be able to work with him, Mr. Sidney Poitier, uh, was a highlight of my career. Um, whether it was I'll Fly Away or The Unit or working with Denzel Washington.
Denzel. That's what we always say. We got the Denzel. Well, he there's a video floating around where he said his name is actually pronounced Denzel, but that's another story.
That is another story
That's another story.
altogether. Yeah, yeah, Samuel Jackson, negotiator, or Mr. Spike Lee um, in Clockers. I think I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed in this career to work with amazing people, having these roles um, that are complex, layered. Um, I've been very blessed in those roles that have come to me. Yeah. Most recently, um, I had the fortune of working with awesome Miss Paula Newsom on her show, CSI Vegas. This episode called The Promise that was written by Anthony Zucker, and it really touched me. It was I read the script and I started crying. I just started crying just reading it, uh, and uh, it's about um, Paula on the show is um, representative of the police that my characters uh, really um, finds police problematic in that 40 years previous, they lost my child who was murdered. They lost her body, can't
Mm.
find. And the piece really becomes about these two black women um, crossing over lines. Uh, uh, she begins to trust uh, Paula's character, Maxine, trust her in this journey of, of finding her child and finding some peace after 40 years. The layers of how these women relate to each other, and it's about love, certainly a mother's love, but also the complexities of relationships within this episode. I really enjoyed doing that most recent role. Um, yeah.
That must have been, I have not seen the episode yet, but that must have been a powerfully uh, written episode for you to read it and have that emotion, not even, be on set, not even watching, other actors work, but just the words and how they are arranged to create this scene. Uh, must have been pretty powerful.
It is what we live for.
Mhm.
It is
Amen for that. Yes,
as an actor. Yeah.
definitely.
And I've been very privileged, very blessed in um, being able to inhabit these different people, different types of people. Some uh, who are being represented in a way uh, with different angles that we've never seen before.
Yeah,
It's
we
an
live.
exciting time. It's a
Yes.
very exciting time to be, I think, in this business as a person of color,
Mhm.
as an African American woman. I know, and everything's changing so fast. I know when I first started out, you didn't see, except on the screen, the actors. You saw on the set um, people of color. Um, you didn't see um, people behind the scenes. Rarely did you see people behind the scenes. I know when it was very marked for me. I was doing an episode. I was doing the Red Line, um, CBS TV show, um, and um, Ava DuVernay was the producer for it. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these people uh, of various hues on the set, uh, uh, whether they were driving or setting up lights or costumes or the cinematographer. Uh, I went, wow, what's going on here? Um, or doing Lovecraft Country. Um, I was so moved by it because this is recent history. This is new.
Mhm. Yes.
And uh, for most of my life, I might be the only one on the set. And I felt like I've been graced with wonderful people. It was the first time where I felt like I didn't have to have so much armor. Um,
Ooh, talk
so, and
about it when you're not by yourself.
you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely do. I have been there. I won't call the show out. It's an older show, but I remember being on a show first season. They did not have a stand-in for me. And
Mm,
what they said was, well, we just haven't had any African Americans on set. And I was like, and so what's interesting, and fast forward some, many years later, I've done shows where my stand-in didn't look anything like me, which is crazy to me. I mean, it's one thing not to be exact, but I'm looking at this person like, why are you coming over here? Because you're like 5'9" and 285 pounds and you're white. How are you
Mm.
my stand-in? But
Um,
yes, when you
yeah,
when when
I
you are
remember.
solo, you have that armor sometimes.
Right.
Uh,
I
Definitely.
remember being on a set, and um, the set person was just throwing trash on the floor, uh, spitting on the floor, throwing trash on the floor, and this is supposed to be uh, the apartment that my character was living in. Uh, this was how he imagined black people to live. Black people live like this. And I said, oh, no, I think my character would clean her house. I think mm, how I see her, she actually cleans her house. She doesn't throw the trash on the floor. Um, these conversations that you sometimes have to have when you're the only one in the room.
Very, very true. And I think that is one of the beautiful things about this PNMC festival.
Mm.
There's just going to be a multicultural diaspora of people.
Yes.
I think about our wonderful co-chairs, Bobby Yin and Javon Johnson, both being diverse in who
Mhm.
they are, and even some of the celebrities who are already set to come. It
Yeah.
is important. It just feels lighter. It's not that I think that there's there's this term about being bilingual, or um, one of the speaking coaches I used to work with some years ago. He would always ask me, when he was certifying me to go out. He would hear me kind of slip into vernacular, if you will, every now and then, and he would say, "Well, how is that received when you're really out in the field?" And I was like, "It's received fine. That's me. It's not, it's who I am." And so I think people resonate with the authenticity. But yes, when you don't have to have the armor, when you don't have to have the wall, when you don't have to feel that you are, I mean, you're the representative. I mean, I don't, you were just talking about, being able to work with Sidney Poitier, and when someone like I'm guessing maybe a Diane Carroll, or, even the now unfortunately late Harry Belafonte, when they were on television, and people, running around the television, you know, I feel like there's still this thing of something, bad is happening on the news, maybe some kind of, major robbery or whatever. And I know for me, the first thing I say, please don't let them be. Yeah, I don't even have to finish that, and so the reverse is, is often true as well. So it is nice
Yes.
when you can breathe
Yes,
freely.
when you can breathe and be and do your job and know that people have your back and are lifting you up and want you to do your best. Um,
Hmm.
yes. Uh, and I've been very fortunate in this life, um, in the course of things, to have people on all sides, um, that have, um, had my back. Um, and so I still stand.
Amen. Now, you've been talking about these wonderful roles that you brought life to on the screen. Uh, but you've also talked about the fact that you've been able to kind of move from in front of the camera to behind the camera to on the page. So, gotta talk about this. This little play, this little thing that you did. It was called Crowns. That it was absolutely amazing. Talk about how you started with that, because there is something about Black women and our church hats.
Yes, yes. Crowns is, um, a piece that I really, that's very close to my heart. It was Emily Mann at the McCarter Theater who gave me a call one day, and she said, "This book is about to come out." Michael and Craig are the originators of this coffee table book, uh, photographs, and the stories that were gathered about these women who are hat queens, which means you own at least 100 hats, uh, and the tradition of Black women wearing hats to church. Where does that come from? So she sent me the book, and I'm looking at it, and I'm in Dallas, Texas, with my mother, and I'm showing her the book, and she takes me through her closet. My mother's not a hat queen because she doesn't own 100 hats, but she owned a lot of hats, and each hat had a story. She's walking me through her closet that afternoon, and she's telling me the story. Each hat, uh, this wedding, this baptism, this funeral, these markers in a life. And then each time we go through, she takes me back around because each hat has these layers of memories cupped under the brim. And I learned so much about my mother on that day, uh, about her life. She was sharing with me through these hats. And I went, oh, okay, that's what this piece is about. It is a piece that seems like generations now, a couple of generations, people come to see it. The mother with their grandmother's children come to see the show all together at once, and has passed down to another generation now. Um, it is something about the celebration of our history, the celebration of uh, the uniqueness of the individual that shines through in terms of our hats, but the uniqueness of the individual and the tenacity of the human spirit. Um, it has traveled around the country several times now over the last, uh, it was 20 years now. It is something that is very dear to my heart.
Crowns. Yeah, definitely. It is I've seen it, I think, twice. Most recently, well, not most recently, probably because that was it still was a while ago, probably about 10 years ago in Durham, North Carolina. So definitely a powerful, powerful piece. Let's talk a little bit about your activism. And you were mentioning that earlier, talking about how you can use the arts to be an activist and use the arts to impact change. Where does your inner activist come from?
Oh, I think it comes from family, definitely. It comes from my mother, it comes from my grandmother. Uh, the belief that one voice, uh, speaking out loud, not being afraid of your voice, can make a difference. How you use that voice, whatever platform you might have. My mother, grandmother never missed the opportunity to vote, and
Mm,
um, used. Um, my mother was always, she was a teacher, started out as a teacher, then became a social worker, but was always reaching out to youth, to empower them in terms of their creativity and how you might use your creativity. That's what she passed to me. Yeah, yeah. What can one person do to
mhm.
activate, make a shift in others and how you receive others in your journeying through this life?
So we have the activist. We also have the educator. You've worked with students on college
Yeah.
campuses.
hmm I work with them, college, elementary, high school. Uh, I, I, and different institutions after school. Um, I know who I am as an individual and what I've collected along the way, and I want to share that. Certainly, with young people, you learn from them as well, that they can inspire. They teach me a lot in terms of how to see the world anew, to not be jaded, not think I know everything, uh,
Right.
but certainly there's some wisdom that I can impart. Uh, but also, they give me a great deal in terms of inspiration um, to take each day um, as something unexpected, um, and something that you can add a new ingredient to, and it can become something else altogether.
So we talked a little bit about activism. We talked a little bit about Regina, the educator. When those collide, and you have a work such as A Seat at the Table, the Fannie
Mm.
Lou Hamer story. I know that you workshop that uh, play with students. Um,
Uh,
what is
yeah,
that process like when you're working with students? So you're teaching them, but then you're also working with them while
yes.
you were working as an activist at the same time.
Yes, I started that piece at Carthage College, and working with um, uh, the young folk was a wonderful experience for me, as I was also seeing how the piece was, um, for some of the students, had never been on any marches, certainly were thinking about voting or not voting. Uh, with the piece about Fannie Lou Hamer and the Freedom Rides, the students connected in terms of those freedom riders who were around their age, that they were putting their lives on the line for their beliefs, how they might change again, how an individual can change uh, the world, their country, their community, their family, in terms of the choices that they make. They started thinking about that, and some of them actually became activists out of uh, feeling and empathy for these students in the 50s and the 60s, and how
Wow.
things are still shifting today, that we're on the brink, and what do we need to do, what conversations do we need to have. uh, the Voting Rights Act is being challenged as we speak. um, do we look back to the old strategies, learn from them, and what can we implement in terms of what's happening right now, today?
That's amazing that the is basically what I was saying, how you're taking your work as an activist and an educator, combining it, and at the same time creating new activists. That is amazing. And I'll just say in full disclosure, for in case anybody was wondering, I had an opportunity to work on a version of the stage reading
Yes,
Seat at the
this
Table with
past
Regina.
year. Yeah,
Yes, this
and
past
you are
year.
fantastic, and I thank you so much for taking that journey with us.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. It
Oh,
was a
you are
journey.
magnificent, madame.
Yeah. It was definitely a journey, and I learned even more about Fannie Lou Hamer, and it prompted me to even do even more research. And yeah, just that's an amazing story. So for those of you who are watching or listening, if you do not know the work of Fannie Lou Hamer, go ahead, just go ahead and find some videos and see that powerful force that is that was the late Fannie Lou Hamer. All right, activist, we got educator, we got writer, we got actress, we got Golden Globe winner, we have Emmy nominated actress. What is next for Regina Taylor?
Oh, well, I'm continuing to do all of those things separately and together. I'm working on a new piece about the Fisk Jubilee Singers, for the Old Vic Theater. Working on a piece called Exhibit, that is about recollections of integrating a school in Muskogee, Oklahoma, as a child.
Mm.
And I'm looking to um, write and produce in terms of film um, this body of work that I have in terms of theater, uh, my plays.
So lots still coming down the pipeline.
We
Uh,
like being busy.
Yeah, listen, okay, absolutely. I know, you were talking about you started writing during COVID, number one, because of what you were watching, but I would imagine also all of these artists that were at the house that we weren't doing anything. And so finding ways to be creative was definitely important. We are looking forward to seeing you in Portland, Oregon, live and in person
Thank
uh,
you.
for the PNMC Fest, which is coming up in August. And
Yes.
any final words before we hang up? I'm saying hang
Oh,
up like we're on the phone.
I'm looking forward to the festival and seeing so many people from around the country. What's on their mind?
All right. Well, I'm so glad we had this time together. Oh, is that Carol Burnett? I just bit one from Carol Burnett. All right. But thank you so much, Regina, for taking time out of you just said it, you're staying busy. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
And that is it for this episode of The B Roll. Again, we look forward to seeing you in Portland, Oregon, August 17th through the 20th for the PNMC Fest. Until next time, stay connected. Bye bye now.